Explained by the Billy Meyer Contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
Time travel, the interdimensional travel, the intergalactic travel, the interuniversal travel part, one-time travel, interdimensional hypothesis, intergalactic travel, see also cosmology, see also time-related terms. Antimatter. Chronons. Dimension barrier. Dimension gate. Dimensions. Hyperspace. Interdimensional. Intergalactic. Normal time. Null time. Parallel universes, spacetime, tachyons, time layers, time levels, time planes, time shifted, time streams, antimatter, chronon, hyperspace, spacetime, tachyon, multiple time dimensions, Farth S. Explanation.
1945 errors. You shall already now know that the successor to my person will, as at 1953, be a young woman from the Dal Universe, where you will certainly be taken someday. The name of your contact person will be Asket. She belongs to one of the branches of our peoples, others of which still reside in the Lyra and Vega systems, however, shifted a split second from this space-time plane, just as is our space-time configuration in which our Pleiadian systems exist. Asket's Explanations, Part 1.
3rd February 1953. And to fulfill our mission, we have to neutralize the space-time connection barrier between our and your universes so that we can achieve a harmonious passage through without damage to ships and universes. Because our homeworld lies in the Dal Universe, in the Acon system, in a system foreign to you, Earth humans, of a universe just as foreign to you, of which several surround the universe known to you on the 7th outer belt. Many of these universes lie in other time planes and in, for you, expanses of utter foreignness. Our universe is a parallel sister universe to yours, respectively a twin universe, and, calculated according to your concepts, it lies in a similar plane. The difference between your time and ours is only very slight. The reason for our coming into this, your Dern universe, lies in earlier times that are calculated in several centuries and, indeed, in the urge to explore and in a fulfillment of an obligation of our race, who, from the earliest times, came from your Dern universe. Certainly, today, the actual direct descendants of the terrestrial forefathers from the Pleiadian no longer populate the territory and spaces and systems around the Ring Nebula and the Vega and Lyra heavenly bodies in a space-time shifted configuration. Rather, they live today on space and time-shifted world bodies far on the other side of the system that you name the 7 heavenly bodies, 7 sisters, respectively, the Pleiades, approximately 400 light-years distant. Our technology allows us very many things, thus even journeys into the future and into the past. Asket's Explanations, Part 3. I have already explained to you the possibility of time travel into the past or future. In accordance with our technology, we are in a position to undertake such trips and to now also employ them for the benefit of your coming mission. Asket's Explanations, Part 4. To begin with, we will now jump back into the 13th century. During the next few months, we want to undertake several trips into the past and into the future in order to experience firsthand or to observe certain events then and there. First, we will fly out to a great height in order to, from there, effect a transmission into the past.
And already the ship took off and shot ragingly fast into the sky, out of the Earth's atmosphere, ever higher up into open space, where suddenly a multitude of stars sparkled.
We will be that far along in a moment. The transmission takes only a split second.
Asket busied herself with her apparatuses, and quite suddenly I seemed for a split second to no longer physically exist. I suddenly seemed to have been simply extinguished corporally.
But now I still want to put a question to you, Asket. Jekieli has given me some things which I would like to take back into our time, because they would, with certainty, have a very high antique value there. Can I take the things back with me?
If you want to, naturally. But the value of the things would not be great for your time, and indeed because the gifts from Jekieli are clearly from his epoch, from the 13th century, yet in your time will not be older. We require only a tiny split second to go from this epoch back to your time, during which everything in my ship and these things will also only age by just this time. If Jeheli's gifts are to become antiques, then you must bury them somewhere, or deposit them in some other way, and arrange for them to endure in the normal time span of centuries, so they then really age. With our ship, if I may so speak, we bridge space and time by way of a transmission through parabolic space, whereby space and time become finite and shrink to a denominator of a spilt second. That means that we can, in this way, bridge time spans of billions of years in a tiny split second without becoming older than that specific split second.
The mathematics are too high for me.
It is an equation. But let us go now, because we still want to change to another time today.
We did as she ordered. Some half-hour later, the ship again sped with us into the sky. Then, for a short split second, I again felt that I simply no longer was. Asket's Explanations, Part 5. The required procedure leading up to the time travel transmission took about 10 minutes, whereby, however, the actual jump required to go from one epoch to another only lasted a split second. All that which appertained to the technology and the procedure was not explained by Asket. With the launching of the transmission, a quite weird thing happened, in the form that the entire surroundings of the ship slowly shimmered, and then quite suddenly, simply no longer existed. I also observed the same process in regard to myself, and in the moment of the jump it was, to me, actually as if I suddenly no longer corporally existed. Somehow I felt transferred into something which I sensed as being eternity itself, and in which an indescribable silence and endless calming peace and enormous love ruled. The actual procedure, from a technical viewpoint, remained a puzzle to me. And certainly I will also never be able to solve this because I am unfortunately completely ignorant in regard to technology.
When the gigantic comet actually came, which penetrated this universe and the solar system from another space-time configuration, and is still today named the Destroyer by many life forms, the humans made their way to the pyramids and underground villages and shut themselves into them. Asket's Explanations, Part 6.
Then we still made several special small preparations before Asket took us into outer space again with her ship, and then carried out the transmission into the past. Our landing place in the past, in the year 32, was the same place where we had taken off only minutes before. Minutes which, however, now suddenly lay about 2,000 years in the past. I am still able to remember very well that the entire landscape of the past was only very slightly different from the way it was in the normal present time of the year 1953. Several ranges of hills and mountains were somewhat different, as were the immediate surroundings of the landing place. That which had been subject to fundamental alterations were villages and the little town of Jerusalem, as I was also able to determine in the later time, in the 1960s. But all in all, everything had otherwise remained about the same, at least as far as the landscape was concerned.
You mean, according to the understanding of my time, that it is the eternal truth, and indeed, in all dimensions of the material and the spiritual?
Contact Report 001. I am called Simjase, and I come from the Pleiades.
Nice trip, if I may say so. How do you accomplish that? Maybe through the hyperspace?
You often know more than we would like you to know. It is true that the Earth human has taken the first very small step towards outer space flight, but that means nothing more than the first rather primitive attempts. Even though he or she has reached the moon with rockets, he or she still hasn't reached the outer space yet. He or she would also never reach it in the present form. What is needed for this is a propulsion system capable of penetrating hyperspace and causing the unending distances to collapse. Space and time are not overcome by space and time, but by the spaceless and the timeless, which means that space and time collapse in themselves and become equally directed to null time. As a result, a few fractions of a second can suffice to rush through millions of light years, practically without a loss of time, because null time paralyzes space and time. Contact Report 004.
My next question relates to the fact that you explained to me at our first meeting that the Earth humans would not be able to travel to the deep and real outer space unless they would invent another method of propulsion. I can only imagine here that with this drive, you mean that it must be, for example, a beam propulsion system, a hyperdrive, so to speak. In my opinion, this would have to be a drive that somehow alters the material matter, presumably when the speed of light is exceeded, and the beam ship is thereby hurtled into a hyperspace, in which space and time paralyze themselves, as you have already explained. I suppose that space and time collapse in such a way that they are completely cancelled out.
You are absolutely right with your assumptions. To traverse the real outer space, a drive is needed that exceeds the speed of light many times over. But this drive can only come into operation when the speed of light is reached. It follows from this that another drive regulates the normal speed up to that of light. This means thus that a beam ship must have two drives. First, the normal drive, which allows acceleration up to and below the speed of light, and second, the hyperdrive, as you call it. So the drive that generates million and thousand million of times the speed of light, thus the hyperspeed by which hyperspace is broken into. A space in which every mass expands in relation to the increase in speed. As a result, time and space collapse and become the null time and the null space. This means space and time simply cease to exist. And this is exactly what allows the fact that distances of countless light years can be rushed through in fractions of a second, without a time shift occurring.
So this means that just as much time passes for a beam ship and its occupants as it does on the home planet, or on another planet or star?
Of course. So for example, when we leave our Pleiades and need around 7 hours to reach Earth, then only 7 hours pass on our home planet and on Earth as well. We need this long of a time because we first have to fly beyond the planetary ranges with the normal propulsion and can only go to hyperspeed once very far out in space. We then also come back from hyperspace far outside of your solar system and fly here with the normal drive. We are never allowed to break into hyperspace while too close to a planet.
I understand. The breaking into hyperspace would presumably also tear one or more planets into the superspace and spew them back out as deadly projectiles when the beam ship bursts out of it. Perhaps even various huge comets have become raging and dangerous objects speeding through outer space in this way, due to the fault of irresponsible starfarers.
You are partially right. The hyperspace really must be broken into only very far out in space because otherwise, planets would be dragged into it. Also, regarding the exit from hyperspace, you were thinking absolutely right. It is also a fact that some comets originated in this manner, but only some, because most of them have been led onto their dangerous paths by other and natural events. So you are only partially right about this if you assume that all comets were created in this manner, as you might have suspected. But the fact is that such incidents are due to irresponsibility, as this does exist throughout the entire cosmic space, not just on the Earth. An irresponsibility also exists when highly developed intelligences make their first hyperspace trials and carry them out too close to planets. The recommendation for safety has indeed to be calculated, and it states that the hyperspeed may only be initiated 153 million kilometers away from the nearest planet.
That is very interesting. But I did not suppose that all comets originated in the manner mentioned. But how does such a hyperdrive actually work? And what about the normal drive?
Unfortunately, I am not allowed to tell you any details about that. If the Earth scientists had more specific details, then they would solve their propulsion problems in a very short time. But this is neither in our nor in the cosmic interest, because the Earth human is still not free and not mature enough to fly around in the outer space. However, at the given time, which is not too far away anymore, he or she will find the solution of his problem all by herself, himself. I may only tell you so much that very many of your scientists are nevertheless already on the right track and are theoretically working and researching on the necessary drives. I may also tell you that these also concern drives that are already known in their basic features within your initiated scientific circles as light emission drives and as tachyon drives. The light emission drive serves as normal drive and has the function of moving the beamship to planets or within their vicinity up to 153 million kilometers of distance, so up to the safety limit. Beyond that, the tachyon drive, among other things, is put into operation if greater distances are to be bridged. This is one of the hyperdrives, capable of controlling hyperspace as well as space and time. We call these two drives by other names, but the sense remains the same. We have a different language than the Earth humans, and so I have to explain it to you in the terms that you understand.
That makes sense to me, but I don't understand how such a drive functions. I know the basic concepts of an emission and I know what tachyons mean, but I cannot imagine or guess the actual processes with a drive resulting from them. Can you tell me more details about that?
No, I am not allowed to do that, because by doing so I would reveal the secret of the whole drive and also the generation and utilization of the tachyons. However, also the secret of the emitting drive.
Contact Report 005.
Deep in the unknown space, in a space-time shifted solar system of the Milky Way, a solitary star floated far away from the normal orbits of the satellites orbiting the Sun. As if hurled by a giant's fist, one half of the dwarf planet shot away and through. A dimensional gate created by the hands of highly developed human beings into the unending expanses of the Milky Way's space towards a very distant target. The destroyer itself drifted by a few units from its old course and shot past the Sun in dangerous proximity, back into the expanses of the space, in order to take the same path as long times before the small planet did. Consequently, it also passed the dimension gate created by technically highly advanced human beings' hands and came into the space-time configuration of our Dern universe and into the area of the Milky Way and thus also into the Sol system. The scientists with their spacecrafts and abundantly provided means of all kinds and fantastic application possibilities used the dimension gate known to them to, in another space-time configuration of the Dern universe, reach the Milky Way area and explored the space for ever newer things.
Contact Report 007.
The celestial sons or starfarers, as we want to call our forebears, were at home on many different planets of stars, in a different space-time configuration or far away from the Sol system, whereby the planets were fundamentally different in climatic terms. Hence, they also produced other races which were able to adapt to the climate from the beginning. A world of spirits, as you called it, does not exist. There are only the fine fluidal worlds in this regard. These are worlds that are located in other dimensions and harbor bodiless spirit forms. When a spirit leaves a material body, then it cannot simply settle down anywhere. It must inhabit a body again. That is to say, it enters a fine fluidal world, thus a world of spirit forms, of which there are countless ones. There, the spirit lives as its own form for so long, until it returns again into a newly created host body.
Contact Report 008.
There are various possibilities for mastering the space. To describe them all, however, would make no sense, as they would be too incomprehensible and too fantastic for the human beings of Earth. With flying objects, however, there is only a single possibility for mastering the space safely. This possibility is that of hyperspace, in which a dilation of time is abolished, since the theory of relativity remains just that, a theory. But the elimination of a time shift or time dilation requires the breaking through to the hyperspace, as I have already explained before. I am not allowed to give more precise details. But in any case, the jump occurs very quickly under the momentary paralysis of the protective shield and with suddenly increased speed, which results in an instantaneous expansion of the mass. This means that the process to be initiated occurs so quickly that the speed and certain processes, which are generated by apparatuses, distort the material within millionths of a fraction of a second, making it a fine form, which is capable of timelessly traversing the superspace. As said, it's not just about the speed, even though it exceeds that of light thousands of millions of times, but various other processes are additionally required. Only due to the speed itself, the effect of the mass changing is created, which is what makes a hyperjump possible. The mass of a body grows in proportion to the increase in its speed. This means that the mass grows endlessly. However, our ships are protected by protective shields, and these prevent this process, and only the switching off of the shield allows for the distorting effect. It is precisely this process, then, that is then exploited to accelerate the actual distortion and to cause a dematerialization. As a result, space and time become paralyzed at the same time and cancel each other out, meaning that the ship is already rematerializing at its destination when it dematerializes at the point of departure. This whole process lasts no longer than a millionth of a fraction of a second, so that also life forms crossing the hyperspace do not have to pay the price for changes of any kind. If spaceships fly slower than the speed of light, then this requires, firstly, an irresponsible amount of time, which is, however, particularly with newcomers to space travel, always the case. Everyone only learns from experiences and cognitions. Secondly, this type of spaceflight is very dangerous and puts every reaching of destination into question. If a spaceship breaks through the speed of light without using the hyperspace, however, then that catastrophe, which you call the theory of relativity, befalls the ship and its occupants. Speeds above that of the light harbor all sorts of dangers if the barrier of hyperspace is not breached and superspace is not made an ally. Time dilation is just one of these dangers. Another danger is that in this case, too, the mass of a spacecraft expands to infinity in relation to its speed and can, under certain circumstances, result in the destruction of the ship and its occupants. There are, however, still many other dangers. Nevertheless, all life forms must complete their evolutionary process through which they gain experiences and knowledge. Also, our forebears had to struggle with these problems and got lost in space and time. However, the same has happened and is happening to other life forms. Hence, it happens again and again that some time travelers from the past appear, which often causes very big problems for them. Often they can no longer find their home worlds, or else find them completely destroyed. Now and then, beings of this kind that are foreign to the galaxy also appear, which have already penetrated as far as Earth and will also continue to come again and again. Some such time travelers have also been stranded on the Earth in earlier times and never left here. Old strange legends and tales about them are known among you. Nevertheless, in the course of time, many of these creatures died out, or they degenerated or mixed with the earthly life forms. It is also not uncommon for such time travelers to visit the Earth even today. And many are among them who never find their home worlds again, and therefore simply settle somewhere on other worlds. Often, however, they also get lost in the expanse of space and die. Not seldom they are thousands and even millions of years on the move, while for them, however, only few minutes or few years pass. The dangers of speed are very great, and they already start at just a few kilometers per hour, if the flying objects or vehicles are not shielded. Even minimal speeds of a few kilometers per hour impair the material in its shape, structure, and stability if no protective measures are present. A natural consequence is the expansion of mass and the decomposition of material. This means that even at low speeds, the mass of a vehicle or flying object imperceptibly increases in relation to the speed and causes the effect of slow destruction. As said, this already happens at a few kilometers per hour of speed and in minimalistic terms that are hardly detectable with your technology. At low speeds, the process also takes a very long time and may under certain circumstances require hundreds of years. At very high speeds, however, the time is reduced to decades or a few years. Also, the life forms themselves are impaired by this process, because also their masses change because of the speed. The function of the brain becomes affected because its mass changes. This has the consequence that all functions are slowed down and outages occur. In other words, this means that all of a sudden the thinking and reaction functions stop and a void develops. The life form thereby loses control over itself and its vehicle. The life form effectively loses control over its own functions. Of course, any life form is capable of gradually getting used to and controlling these factors to some extent. However, for every life form, there is somewhere the absolute limit where it simply must fail. According to earthly terms, it may often take years before such incidents plague a human being.
Contact Report 009.
With spaceships, which they had seized, they fled through the space out of another configuration of space and time into the one of the Milky Way of the Dal Universe and settled on the Earth. Everything without residue was destroyed, and only a few thousand human beings were able to survive, while others fled again into the outer space and into the old space-time configuration and settled on distant worlds.
Contact Report 017.
We know two possibilities in order to see the future. One possibility is that we travel into the future in a material conscious-based manner and observe and register the events of the time in question on the spot, as I did with Mr. Jacob, for example. This is what we call the direct vision of the future. The second possibility is that of calculating combinatorial seeing, as it is also done in part by you and is known under the wrong name or the wrong designation clairvoyance. This kind of future view is also doubtful and erroneous with us and does not exclude false observations and false descriptions. But be aware that these kinds of predictions may be subject to certain changes or that they may contain errors. They are not the result of a direct material vision of the future, but only the product of calculating combinatorial seeing, as your clairvoyants do. For a direct material view of the future, however, the great mass of your humanity is not capable of experiencing and coping with it, which is why I am not allowed to give it.
Contact Report 029.
Millions of years ago, a giant dark star in another space-time configuration destroyed half a planetary system in many light-years distance from the earthly system. After the destruction of that distant system, the Wanderer rushed out into the vastness of space, entered the space-time structure of the Milky Way of the Dal Universe, and set course for Earth.
Contact Report 030.
You will undertake a very long flight, which is still impossible even for many space-traveling life forms. There are currently very few life forms in the universe that are able to travel such long distances, because this is only possible through the refraction and use of hyperspace. But where this was made possible by highly developed technologies, the universe no longer offers any limits. Even space and time no longer form barriers, nor do the barriers between different universes. As you know from earlier times, time travel is also known to certain life forms. We will not be able to make the next voyage in my small beam ship because it is not suitable for such distances. After finishing your photographic work, we will change to a very spacious ship. So try to have a total of at least 30 hours, because with this ship we will really travel very far outside of all constellations and galaxies known to you, and will measure several billion light-years. You forget the paralysis of space and time through the use of hyperspace. A hyperjump over countless trillions and even higher nominal values of kilometers only takes fractions of a second.
Contact Report 031.
This spaceship represents our latest development and has been working together with other ones of this same kind for 4 years now in Earth's chronology. They find useful applications as self-sustained expeditionary ships and for intergalactic order-keeping. They are able to move within all times and spaces, and for them, negotiating the barrier between universes is no longer an obstacle, whereby an all-universal community made of countless life forms can be included.
That is still fantastic. If I understood right what you have just explained, you are able with this great ship, as well as with the others of the same type, to shift from one universe to another?
Sure, you have understood me correctly. However, this only applies to aligned universes.
But for how much longer will we be flying through the universe?
For about 30 minutes more, then we will transmit to a different remote system.
Transmit? That means, among other things, time travel, right?
Sure, but you already know about this.
Yes, but that was with Asket, and not with such a gigantic ship. And how will it be then, when I return to Earth? We would have to go back in time now, to return to Earth at the right time. That doesn't make sense to me because you said that you had to do something at a universe barrier. If that falls chronologically in our time, then it is no longer possible.
You are not taking some important things into consideration, because Simjase once explained to you the possibilities offered by our means of transportation, namely the use of hyperspace, by which space and time become paralyzed.
However, it did not happen in Turkey, but in Iran, near Zahedan early one morning. I have, luckily, while I was shielded from vibrations, dug out from the earth a time spiral, which was of great importance. We had been searching for it for 3 years until we finally found it. It was a time projectile for research purposes. At least that's what you would probably call it. Here, this is the projectile. Simjase brings out a conical spiral-shaped device. This is also the reason why we are going to the edge of the universe now, because this device came from another universe.
Simjase once explained to you the possibilities offered by our means of transportation, namely, the use of hyperspace, by which space and time become paralyzed. Only when Asket stepped into official contact with us and through the Dal race, we acquired the knowledge and the ability to make time travel equipment, did we first manage to undertake this kind of trip. This was only 4 years ago by Earth chronology 1971, while you had already had your time travel experience with Asket and your friend a number of years before that.
We were talking about time travel and related things, and about this great spacer too. I would now like to ask you whether I might be right about the following assumptions. Simjase has given me an explanation about the utilization of hyperspace, as you have already mentioned. As I now conceive the matter, this utilization of hyperspace, this phenomenon that I have experienced earlier, consists of a real time travel, offering all the possibilities of past, present, and future, as well as other dimensions and spaces. Simjase had explained then that a hyperleap through endless distances only takes a split second to happen, but unfortunately, I only noticed that correctly just now. Therefore, in my estimation, it does not consist of a simple hyperspace crossing, but of a time travel, through which space and time become paralyzed, something that would certainly not happen on a normal hyperleap. For me, this results in the moment of the simultaneous point of view in simultaneous time. Space and time are thus paralyzed, taken in a literal sense. That is, they become pushed together, if I can put it like that, whereby an absolute timelessness arises and also a spacelessness. That time and spacelessness can then get traversed with immeasurable speed in a split second, without any shifts or distortions. When Simjase uses the hyperspace with her small beam ship, it must also consist of the same principle. By that manner of using the hyperspace, it must also be possible to do a time travel also in time that stands still, through which one appears at the targeted location, right in the same second as when one disappears from the starting point. From my estimation, it does not deal with anything other than with a technologically generated dematerialization and rematerialization when the time travel is carried out in present time. Only then can one see virtually no passing of time, while everything remains free from shifts and distortions. Ptah and Simjase turn to the instruments at the horseshoe-shaped console. Small light bodies light up, and dark picture screens come alive. Shapes that are completely strange to me appear on them, and for the first time I hear a tone now, a very faint and somewhat soothing singing like metal. I look up at the transparent dome and see that stars of all sizes go by very quickly, and now suddenly merge into a milkish white veil. This only takes a few seconds, and now they are already recognizable as bright stars again, passing by at tremendous speed. But that only lasts a few seconds as well, until they go along slowly like before. During this whole time I feel somewhat weird, but I feel a very profound peace in me.
We have made the first hyperleap.
Watch the stars now. We will start the next jump in 9 seconds.
I do as advised and experience it all again, like the first time. And also here, the whole process and everything seems much more familiar now. But I notice the peculiarity, that for seconds I find myself again in a deep tranquility, which is much more familiar to me now than on the first time. I am even able to analyze it somehow as something timeless, eternal. Once more, the preparations for the hyperleap are taken, and this time I will attempt to observe things other than just the overhead view. I watch Simjase and Ptah very carefully, and like the starscape before, they suddenly turn into a milky, shimmering mass. But the horseshoe-shaped console also turns into the same white mass, and like Ptah and Simjase, it also returns to a solid form after a few seconds. The impression of deep tranquility that has come over me this time is much greater than before, and I think that I have now solved the riddle. This deep tranquility and this unbelievable peacefulness flowing through me is eternity itself, the absolute timelessness, which obviously is no longer subject to outside influences, such as the restlessness, strife, and worries that trouble the consciousness. I realize suddenly that during these few seconds, I was in the eternity itself, experiencing myself as eternity, where I only exist as fine spiritual matter and am completely free of all that can influence my material life. I actually traveled to eternity for a few seconds.
Even many of our own life forms only reach such insights after being in the fine material for a longer time. In a few seconds, we will start the next leap.
I only half hear his words because my thoughts are elsewhere. Automatically, I put my focus on myself and wonder about the fact that I suddenly cannot see my body. Once again, this takes only seconds, which I can verify by looking at my watch.
Because distances are no longer a difficulty for us, we can safely leap back and forth across space without having to keep a certain line.
Shortly thereafter, experience again the immersion into eternity. However, I do not advance further into it, and everything is suddenly blocked. Something is simply inhibiting me from penetrating further. But what is it? Oh, of course. The time, the damn time. It must be what keeps me from plunging deeper. These few seconds are not enough. They are just enough for a lightning-fast plunge into eternity, and to emerge back just as fast. It is still.
Hello. You are very far away in your thoughts, and once again you have realized something new. Everything is right with the time, but this can be changed if you are interested. The great leap to the universe barrier can be altered so that the rematerialization can be delayed and the time shifted by a few minutes. For this purpose, we have to travel into the future, and the lost time cannot be recovered. In ordinary time travel into the future, the time interval would be neutralized, yet for this form of penetrating into the timelessness, other technologies are necessary. In this manner, time cannot become paralyzed. We have to live through it, and therefore to also let it go over and through us. However, there are limits set to this, so that while 5 seconds pass by your time measurements in ordinary time-space, only 1 second passes for us when penetrating into the timelessness. We can do this because we can regulate the time between dematerialization and rematerialization by modulating speed, since according to our understanding, true timelessness also prevails in the timeless. This, of course, is only relatively speaking, for this shift out of the timelessness also keeps its own time, but it is embedded into such a huge interval that we cannot fully control it. A single second of the timeless amounts to millions of years in ordinary time-space. If we were then to penetrate while standing still or with insufficient speed into the timeless, we would never be able to return to our homeworld. If we were to remain standing still for only a few seconds in the timeless, many millions of years of ordinary time would pass on Earth, which would turn into dust, while you would return into normal space only a few seconds older, though in truth you would be thousands of millions of years older. That may all seem incomprehensible and fantastic to you, yet it is so. Even with your greatest consciousness-based efforts, you will not be able to understand the actual connections, as even for us with our development, these are still not available, and this mystery is not exactly transparent. In this respect, we too know only a few solutions to these enormous mysteries, and are therefore continuously striving for further knowledge. Though we have the technology required to travel through the universe with the help of hyperspace, and can also use timelessness as an ally, we are still at the initial stages in our related research and development. We can, however, take responsibility for giving you an incursion into the timeless, which you call the eternity, with our great spacer. To enable the desired awareness for you, we will need 7 minutes of leap time, which in normal time-space increase 5-fold. This means for you and for all of us that we need from dematerialization to rematerialization an experiential time of 7 minutes within the spaceship. While in the timeless only the 1,000 billionth fraction of a second passes, whereas in ordinary time 35 minutes elapse, and everything gets older by this amount. In this special case, the course of time changes for all of us, for instead of growing older, there happens a rejuvenation of exactly 28 minutes. The mathematical calculation for this is very easy, while we are in timelessness for 7 minutes. These 7 minutes are our ordinary time to speed factor, which is also carried over into our older self as 7 minutes. However, as we spend this time in the timeless, and to a great extent can be protected from its influence, thus the time effect being of 1 to 5 in ordinary space, our space is slowed down and as a result acquires the difference of 28 minutes. So for us there is only a passage of 7 minutes, while in normal time-space 35 minutes pass. Therefore then, if 35 minutes pass on your homeworld, then of course everything gets older by this time. Yet during this same interval, because of the altered time effect in reality, you only live for 7 minutes. You now have to subtract these 7 minutes from the elapsed 35 minutes on Earth to reach the result of 28 minutes that you have not aged. So during these 7 minutes, you become only 7 minutes older while everything on Earth ages by 35 minutes. In other words, this means that while 35 minutes pass, you only become older for 7 minutes, while also becoming younger by 28 minutes. Our last jump will be to the Andromeda Galaxy, which rests, as seen from Earth, at a distance of roughly 2.2 million light-years. From there, we will set up for the great leap to the universe barrier by which we want to give you the 7 minutes opportunity to experience the timeless.
And since I am already speaking of this, I want to ask you something before we jump into null time, the timeless, or in the eternity, as you call it, for 7 minutes, which will happen in a few minutes. The perceptions there are completely different from the ones that are normal in material life. For that reason, it is also not possible for us to infinda and receive your thoughts and feelings, because we are still in the process of consciousness-related and spiritual evolution.
Ta and Simjase manipulate the console, and now I can again see how the fantastic starry sky is changing. The initially calmly passing by constellations are again transformed into strokes, and after a few seconds begin to blur. And in the next moment they are no more than a whitish milky mass, a shimmering mass, like I have experienced in all previous hyperleaps. But now, suddenly, this milky whitish glow is gone, and there is a complete darkness. What is this? Now everything is suddenly bathed in a golden color, and then everything is suddenly silvery. But oh man, this radiant light, this radiant brightness. Everything is bathed in radiant light. Everything exists only as radiant light. It is stronger than all the suns of the universe put together. Man, oh man, this bright light, and it doesn't even hurt me in the eyes. Man, this is the eternity, the bright, radiant light of eternity. Look, there exists nothing else but the eternal. Man, how splendid. Splendid? Man, that is the splendor itself. Eternity and splendor are one and the same. Why do I separate them? Why do I put the eternal in terms of time? Time does not exist, and eternity is splendor. Man, what is this? This calm, this peace, what is it? How did I get here? Love, oh, this deep all-embracing love. There is nothing but love. Splendid, oh yes, I am in the eternity. Just how can I forget that? This radiant light, this more splendorous, this love in everything. Oh yes, I am a human being, but how can I? Why do I forget that? I am just a guest in eternity and these lovely voices that call me by. Where do they come from? I see nothing but radiant, soothing light. Who is calling for me? I don't see anything. Man, I am no more. I don't see myself. I am eternity in the eternity. Oh, how is this? I cannot see with my eyes anymore, and yet I can see everything, and I cannot hear with my ears, and yet I hear everything. Yes, love, how powerful it is, how vast, infinite, and splendorous. Everything is love and splendor. Just why does the human being not want to understand that? How? Oh, yes, but that cannot be. I am not a human being. I am the eternity. This light, this radiant light, such profound love, calm and peace it has. Oh, now I understand. I cannot see or hear, but I am Finda. I feel, I live, I am Finda. How beautiful is this peace, am I not human? Am I not the eternity? Who is calling for me? Interesting, I sense the hearing without needing the ears, and I see without needing the eyes. I feel the seeing and I feel the hearing. Where am I? Why is this like this? Oh yes, the eternity, now I understand. I am the eternity. Just why was everything so unclear? Just why did I not find the connection? Just why did I forget that I am in the eternity as a human being? Just why can I only think clearly now? Think, I rather am Finda, I feel. How is this possible? And from where do these voices come from, which I cannot hear with my ears, but only am Finda? Only? Why do I am Finda as only? It's just not like that. Hearing with the ears is so painful and materially bound. Hearing by Mfindan doesn't hurt, and seeing by Mfindan doesn't hurt either. It simply penetrates in me, soft and full of love. It lets me hear and see. But this call, who calls me then? Who is calling me? I feel that someone is calling me. Who is there? This light, this splendorous, radiant light, the call comes from this light. Is it the call of eternity? Oh, but how hard it is not to think that I am only a guest in eternity, that I am a human being. How painful it is, this humanity. I don't want to be that no more. I want to stay here forever as eternity in the eternity. This call of eternity, this deep love. Yes, I want to stay here. I will never go back. In here is the existence, the real existence. I don't understand this call. How can I be here as a human being? Am I not a human being? No, I am not. Now I know it. I am me. I am existence. Just how could I Mfindan myself as a human being? How could I Mfindan myself as a stranger here, who has to return to a material world? I am here and I belong here. Something wanted to mislead me, and it inspired unreal Mfindungs in me. But why? I must have already left the material life and died a long time ago. But how long has my transition to here lasted? What have I lived through? There are so many confusing things. There is Simjase and Ptah and many other things. But those are just dreams of the dead? Would this perhaps be always so? Is that the transition from physical being to existence? Would this conversion be dominated by those dreams of the dead? Perhaps to mold the transition correctly, to release the fear of the unknown? I don't know. Or maybe everything was real. No, this is not so, because now I am eternity and Mfinda it. These were surely only dreams of the dead, dreams of crossing from material life to real existence. Death is only the intermediate space, the intermediate station between life and existence. Death? That's incorrect. It isn't so, but how do I know that? Who tells me that? Oh yes, I am Findit from this mysterious call from the splendorous, radiant light of love, from eternity itself. But am I not eternity myself? Oh, of course. That's why I can understand the call. What do I care then about material life and intermediate stations? Just why? I don't understand because it doesn't affect me. I am existence now, and have everything behind me. Finally I am existence. Finally I am me. Yes, I am Fin to the call, but why just now and not then? Yes, it's the call. It's the call of eternity. There are no more individual beings. There is only the great unity of the whole. Why did I not know that? I don't understand it, but why should I understand it? All is really so. Yes, but what yes, it is so, I dissolve. But why it yes, the existence is vast, why are these Empfindungen so strange? Why do I think of me? It's not me, it's existence, it's the great unity of the whole. How could I only empfinden of myself? Would this arise from thinking of the long-past material lives? It must be so, because in here there are only empfinden in the great unity of the whole. Now I arrive to the understanding that the self has become consciousness. The self is inexistent and has become existence. Everything is only consciousness and empfinden. That's the understanding, that's the existence. Now I understand the empfinden of the strange call, which now isn't strange anymore. It's really the call of eternity, the call of the existence, and now the empfinden is fulfilled with the deepest understanding. Now calm and peace are no more than infinite love, because from it emerge calm and peace. Then why does the human being not understand this? Why does he only seek love in unreal untruths? But why do these empfindungen exist in the great existence? Why would the great unity bring such empfindungen into awareness? Oh yes, the empfinden understands. The eternity is the existence and monitors what takes place in the inexistence, the material life forms. It monitors the life of the human being. So that's why the empfinden penetrates the consciousness. The empfinden offers the possibility of conscious recognition, and the existence of the eternity monitors all the events of the inexistence. Therefore also the empfinden for the human beings. But what does the human being know about it? He strays on dark paths, trapped in irrational teachings, and fails to recognize the truth of the real consciousness of the eternity. How mistaken are the human teachings about truth, which base everything on ignorance? Oh, how painful this is. Why does the human being just not want to understand the real truth and the love? Why does he or she keep themselves imprisoned in cultic heresies and tread the path of destruction with them? Strange, the empfinden does not register a deity. How mistaken are the human teachings. They are just an evil delusion, which leads to destruction. Just why does the human being not want to be eternity and to become real existence? Why does he or she not free themselves of cultic heresies and run to their doom? Human, why do you do that? See here the eternity, see the real existence, and see here is the great and spirit consciousness, the great unity of the whole. Above the consciousness of the existence stands only the creation, and it is infinitely vaster and more powerful in its awareness of its existence than this level of consciousness. This awareness is the final stage of all spirit levels before becoming one with the creation. Here is the last stage of the possible relative completion before the oneness with the creation. This is the last stage of the final truth and the fulfillment of the relative completion. This is the stage of existing in the consciousness of the existence, in the fulfillment of the relative completion. This is the stage of the great unity in the oneness, and here all the self and all the personality is overcome. The consciousness is the call of the eternity, and the eternal call of the truth, and the all-embracing love, and what can be greater than it, because everything is born out of it. It's the existence of the creation and the existence of all existence. Beside it, truly nothing exists. Just why does the human being not understand this? Why does he or she chase after irrational teachings? And why does they let themselves be captured by heresies? Nothing exists outside of the creation, and there is no other creation besides it. It alone is the truth of the universe, and it alone is consummate spirit consciousness, perfect love and consummate existence. It's not shaped and not formed. It's spiritual consciousness, spiritual love, and consummate spiritual existence alone. And outside of it is nothing. Human being, why do you not recognize this truth? Why do you let yourself be misled by cultic heresies? And why do you place human creatures and many other things next to it, which should take the place of the existence of the creation? Human being, why do you foreordain a deity in place of the existence of creation? And why do you curse the existence of the creation through the nomination of a god, which mendaciously and fraudulently should be the existence of the creation? Human being, how evil you are in your arrogance, and how can you presume yourself to be above the creation or to equate it with the creatures created by it, by appointing them as gods and imagining them as the creation? How you have become vicious in your thinking, unreasonable and autocratic. Oh, human being, you advance in very evil paths, which lead to destruction, yet by no means will you find in them the way to the real existence of the creation. Here is the eternity, and here only the truth rules, and so also only the truth is expressed. O human being, how great and infinite is the infindon of pain at your ignorance. Despite endless love, a thorn of pain resonates through the infindon of the consciousness, and makes the splendor of the radiant light melancholic. Recognize the love still. Recognize the truth, human being, so that you too experience the splendor of happiness in the existence of the eternity. You human being of the distant material world, human being of the earth, hear the call of eternity. Let yourself be instructed about the truth and use the power of the spirit and consciousness to recognize the love. Make it your own and thereby flow in the consciousness of the eternal existence. Work your way consciously up to the level of the radiant light and receive here the conscience of the great unity in the unity. Realize the falsity of all cultic heresies and deities, and realize alone the path of the light and the universal love. Realize the way of the truth, the only one which leads to the splendor of the creation. It alone is all-encompassing and all-magnificent. Conceive that human being, and allow only the truth to be the real truth, because only it leads to the kingdom of eternity. Conceive, the word of the truth is imperishable, because it is empfindung and recognition in the existence of the consciousness of the great unity. The heavens and worlds will perish, but the words of the truth will never perish. They are, oh no. It's so strange the earth human knows only half the truth, for he or she is misguided by cultic heresy. Yes, but why then? Great unity in consciousness is what? It's so strange I am finda so very painful for the earth human. Why is that? Oh, no, don't, you go away from me. What is it now? I hear your call from somewhere, and it's going away. Why do you go, oh, the light, its radiance decreases? Why is that? I am me again. No, that should not be. No, I don't want to go back. No, I belong here. I know, I am thinking again. I no longer am finda. Oh, I understand. The light, the radiance is gone now, and already it shimmers gold, and now silver. No, I don't want to. Leave me. I hang in the cabin chair as if I had been executed and stare forward. I don't want and cannot understand being here. I don't want to return to here at all. I want to remain in the beyond, and yet I'm here. Just why? I don't understand the world anymore. Why, oh why? The beyond is love and existence, and what is here at all? These burdens, these worries, problems and needs, that cannot be true. I want to go back. Oh, this misery, this sad reality of material life. Oh man, this sad misery, this life, this misery. Just why did I come back? Man, oh man, I could howl. Oh, just how can I go back? There must be a way. It's not easy to... Oh, what is that now? Man, what is that? What? Oh, is that you? What are you doing here, Simjase? Why are you shaking me like that? What's happening?
We have reached our goal, but we have done a big hyper jump, and the rematerialization was delayed by 7 minutes to allow you an intrusion into null time into the timelessness.
Huh, timelessness?
Do you still not understand? Oh, yes. Of course, pitiful. How very pitiful. Why have you brought me back here? You like to joke, but we have all been inside the timelessness and would all like to stay there. But we must not do that, because we have to complete the path of evolution step by step, as you also must do, dear friend. I know very well the pain you feel now, as we have all experienced the same thing. But we have become accustomed to it, and know that we can under no circumstances stay there before we have reached that stage of consciousness which belongs to the great consciousness level.
We have reached our goal. We are almost at the end of the material universe. Until we reach the barrier, we will go through completely empty space. That is to say, the outer creation belt up to the displacement belt. Up to that point, there are now not only a few million kilometers, but many billions of light years. So we leave the actual material universe, that is to say, the solid-state matter universe belt, and go into the transformation belt and beyond, up to the very end of our Dern universe, where across a barrier, that is to say, a universal barrier, we will then create a passageway to the Dal Universe.
Fantastic. But tell me now, why have I had so many thoughts in the great unity of the null time? They were only 7 minutes according to your information, but I have thought more than is possible in 7 minutes.
You have thought no more. You have only empifinden from empfinden to perceive in a fine fluidal manner. In the null time, in the timeless, only empfinden exists in the great unity. You were yourself no more, but only a tiny part of the whole great unity. And in this great unity, the empfindungen penetrated into you.
I was able to analyze that, that's right. Only at the beginning did I notice a certain I-force, but then this dissolved in the infinite level and mass of the eternity.
Because if in the timelessness you were already in a position to realize the truth of the great unity, then you have realized many other truths, which the immature Earth human is not ready to harvest yet.
As I see, we are flying with tremendous speed through the increasingly emptier space, and in here there are no stars in the way, so to speak. Only far ahead I see that star, which is now becoming bigger and bigger, and far behind it I can see 5 small blue dots. What star is that, and what are the blue dots?
That is Galtos, the last big star in this part of the material universe. This structure is produced by a spaceship that you can recognize there, very far ahead in the ring-like center. Here our universe ends, and this structure stands as the gateway to another universe, which we call the Dal Universe.
Man, but this is enormous. It must certainly have close to 50 kilometers in diameter. And the length of this tunnel, man oh man.
You err very much in your measuring. The diameter of the tunnel amounts to 177,000 meters, and its length totals 7,103,000 million kilometers.
Do we have to go to another space-time dimension or something? And what is it actually about this Dal universe that seems so familiar to me?
We will remain in the normal time and normal space. You see, we are already far inside the tunnel, and nothing changes. But as for the Dal universe, does this not remind you of anything? It is a twin universe of our Dern universe.
It seems very familiar, at least the name. Simjase, that light there in the center.
We have crossed over. We are on the other side. Nera, Simjase is bringing a time projectile back to us. That's what she has gone to get now.
Oh yes, Simjase told me something about it. Are you allowed to tell me what this thing is? Nera, for 9 years we have been researching a new technology for time travel over unmeasurable distances and time periods, and also across various universes, without the need to open a barrier. For this purpose, we have developed small spiral-shaped time projectiles, which for now we are transmitting from and to the present time, specifically from our universe's present time into yours. And since Simjase understands these technologies and works with us, it's only understandable that we guide some of our projectiles to your own Earth. 3 years ago we transmitted the last projectile to there, where unfortunately it could not be found for a long time, because of a very small error that had arisen in the time calculation. Thus, the projectile landed several thousand kilometers to the east of the intended target, because the Earth had rotated by this distance during the course of the projectile's journey. This mistake was discovered some months ago by us, and so we were able to find out where the projectile had really landed. Simjase effectively found it then and has brought it back to us now because it is very valuable for us.
Each dimension of a universe has different parallel universes with parallel worlds. They are parallel dimensions or other space-time structures. So also beyond your home world, the Earth, other dimensions and worlds exist. These parallel worlds exist in superordinate or subordinate dimensions, in space-time structures that are alien to normal time. On one of these kinds of parallel worlds, almost everything is the same as on the worlds of normal time. Only small differences prevail, especially in the times. And into such a parallel world I want to travel with you. It is a different form of time travel into the future or past than you experienced with Asket. There are the same human beings and buildings there as on Earth, only everything is just shifted in time and space. Unfortunately, however, we really must hurry now. We have already overrun our time.
You can settle this again with a short time leap, can't you?
Sure.
Is this supposed to make me younger again? Or maybe a little older for a change?
A few seconds younger.
We are just about to cross back into our own universe. After that, we will stay at the end of the barrier for 50 minutes to close it again.
Does it take that long?
Sure. Because we can't just let it collapse. We have to close it systematically. That just takes time and requires a lot of care. From universe to universe, there are very few barrier points that can be used as a transition. They must also not be overused or overloaded, otherwise the barrier structure will be destroyed, which could lead to a universal ram belt catastrophe. So everything has to be done very precisely according to its order and according to the given laws, which of course always takes its time.
The whole process of closure is programmed and will take care of itself without any special intervention on our part. The truth is that invisible and unrecognizable forms of beings live in the most diverse spheres and dimensions. These are spheres and dimensions that are superimposed on or subordinate to your normal time, and that form independent spheres and space-time planes. In and of themselves, these spheres and dimensions, and likewise the life forms or being forms that animate them, are of as material a nature as the Earth human being, his world and his time plane. The swinging waves of the time planes concerned are, however, structurally fundamentally displaced, whereby these other spheres, dimensions, and forms of life or beings remain invisible and unrecognizable to the Earth human being. The vibrational spheres far inferior to Earth humans are just as invisible and unrecognizable to them as the spheres far superior to them. If this were not so, the most diverse spheres, dimensions, and life forms would flow into each other and cause universal chaos. Fundamentally, nothing at all could exist as a result. So there must be sharp dividing lines to ensure the existence of spheres, dimensions, and entities. Now these others, the being forms or life forms from other spheres and dimensions, which are just as material in their time plane as Earth humans are in their space-time structure, also have their worries and problems, and they too are classified in the cosmic course of evolution. In no wise are they interested in making contact with the time plane, which is yours and means the normal time plane for you. On the other hand, also in various other spheres and dimensions, only very few life forms are capable of opening time barriers and penetrating other spheres, just as this is not the case on Earth. In other spheres and dimensions, then, the beings or life forms are just as material as they are on Earth, except that they are invisible and unrecognizable to you through the vibrational shifts. But there are still the high spiritual planes, the purely spiritual spheres and dimensions. These, however, are no longer material in any form known to you, but are purely spiritual. This means, then, that in these spheres and dimensions, there live only beings who are released from the material body and vibrate towards the goal of relative perfection. These are partly the beings which already in the highest planes begin to direct the destinies of the universe in harmony with the creation and are capable of creation. But these entities also do not make contact with Earth humans. This only happens in certain exceptional cases, which are very rarely repeated in millennia of time, when lower beings capable of communication are addressed by higher, purely spiritual life forms and made aware of certain happenings. Without exception, however, this only occurs in connection with the appearance of a life form at some place in a sphere and dimension, which has a mission to fulfill as a prophet, etc., and such prophets exist in all spheres and dimensions, that is, not only on Earth.
Simjase once told me that for a hyperleap you would have to keep a safety distance of 153 million kilometers from the nearest stars and planets, so that they would not be pulled into the maelstrom of the hyperleap hole. Why are you now disregarding this precaution?
With my ship, we have much better distance management capabilities. The technology of this ship allows us to neutralize time, as you know and have experienced. Through this process, it is possible for us to get the safety distance of 153 million kilometers behind us in a fraction of a second and then transmit. On the one hand, we neutralize time to just short of the transmission point. And on the other, we create a neutral, timeless channel in outer space through which we can then travel the short distance of 153 million kilometers in a split second. The timeless channel is actually easier to manage than a hyperleap. But such a channel can only be created at certain distances, always taking into account the nature of the environment. The various energies of the different galaxies and systems limit the range of a timeless channel, with distances varying from 210 billion to 735 billion kilometers.
Aha. So then, this time, neutralization only takes place through purely galactic and systemic energies, which you make use of, while for the hyperleaps you can practically use an intergalactic, or rather the most diverse universal energies. According to my calculation, these universal energies should be far superimposed on the galactic energies and, accordingly, should be sought in much higher values. Or am I mistaken in that?
You speak like a good scientist. Your figures are exactly right.
Since we are in free space and do not influence any events, etc., we can travel back in time for a few days without hesitation and continue to live there without anything changing. Although you will be away from your home for more than 3 days in total, you will only have been away for about 20 hours according to earthly normal time.
That sounds a bit crazy. So I have been away from home for a little over 2 days now, and I will be away for a total of 3 or more days. So that means I started this journey with you on the 17th, and I am now on the road with you for more than 2 days, because today is the 19th. But now, I am going to spend more days with you, and then I'm going to travel back in time with you to be back home on the 18th. Although in reality, I am still on a great journey on the 20th or so, and I am going to curve through the universe with you. Is that right?
Sure.
Besides, other races from those worlds come to Earth very often through an old dimension gate. The others also come from time to time through the old dimensions gate to the Earth, but this happens actually rather rarely.
Contact Report 034.
In the past, I had once explained to you that there are 3 different locations on the Earth where fully natural dimension gates arise periodically. These gates signify a nature-based danger, cosmically caused and originating from time flows. This natural danger is the originator of many happenings, which affect the normal time of Earth, but just at those places where they appear. But now I want to explain the dimension gate to you. As already said, it is a cosmic phenomenon. Such a dimension gate represents a natural cosmic phenomenon, a barrier between your normal time and a dimension unknown to you. In the given case, this other dimension has a parallel world to Earth, which is, however, subject to greater fluctuations in landscape at some points. The dimension barrier, or the dimension gate, is caused by a cosmic elimination transformation radiation, which wavers and occurs periodically. Its point of origin are various giant suns in a galaxy unknown to you within a universe of other dimensions, which are sending out their radiations and are meeting in the other space-time structure in 7.2 light-years distance beyond the Earth. Over there, they begin to flow into one another and to bundle up. The Earth is the exact endpoint in the space-time structure of the Dal Universe, where this radiation is hitting highly concentratedly and producing the effect of a dimension barrier. As the Earth moves, like all structures in the universe, this radiation, divided into a 3-arm, only hits the planet at 3 locations. When the Earth is moving exactly in the focus of the wandering radiation, causing the 2 dimensions to be able to touch each other via the radiation. The radiation itself produces the effect of an elimination of the normal time in a manner of evoking a transformation. That means that the structure of the earthly normal time is at the radiation flashpoints transformed into the timeless, through which the normal time is eliminated. This transformation layer is still located far outside of the actual center, which is already located in the other dimension. It is a similar process as the one known to you with cyclones. In the actual center of the storm, there is calm, while the vortex contains the actual storm. The outer rings and whirls are the transition layer from stormless to the storm. It is similar with the dimension gate. The outer layers represent the transformation layer from the earthly normal time to the other dimension. The vortex's radiation contains the actual transition in it, while the center constitutes already the other dimension, a different universe, that is to say, a different dimension within a different time layer. Look, if you want to depict it, you can do it so, as I am drawing it here in the sand. Simjase uses a piece of wood for creating a drawing on the floor. When later on recreating this drawing on paper, you will be able to easily recognize the facts from it, and they will also be understandable to all others. You see in my drawing that the principle of the storm follows and acts according to a precise harmony with the cosmic construction. This is the same event that emerges during the formation of a galaxy. The laws in macrocosm and microcosm are exactly the same and differ only in their order of magnitude. When you now start with the same drawing and imagine to see the dimensions barrier in it, you are again getting the same principle. Relatively seen, the processes remain exactly the same, with the only difference of their forces equaling fundamentally different types. Concerning the dimension gate, the forces are purely cosmic energies, radiations of a very special kind. The effect of the vortex or the spiral does anyhow remain the same, even if the appearance is different. The transition belt, the storm belt, and the center are here also present, just in a different form than for a galaxy or for a storm of nature's elements on a planet or a star, that is to say, on a sun. The transition zone or the transition layer is to be compared with a transition time between two world eras. The old and traditional normal time is still available, but it is already allowing a view into the other time level, into the other dimension and other world. So when a flying object enters this zone, with life forms sitting in it, well then they are still in the normal time, but are already looking into the other time layer, into the other world. Because during their flight they looking forwards, they see a world totally foreign to them and a foreign landscape, as long as they had never been there before. By the powers of the vortex, life forms, as long as they are not familiar with these happenings and are not possessing the required devices and apparatuses, lose control over their flying devices and are driven that way into the actual passage whirl, into the actual dimension gate. Over there, they are then already solely seeing the other world in the other dimension, while their normal time is already behind them. Then they are driven into the center of the spiral whirl, and are therefore in the other time layer, thus in another world, that is to say, in a dimension totally foreign to them. Should they lack the required apparatuses and other devices, they become prisoners of the foreign dimension for all times, and a return into their normal time won't be there anymore for them.
But you had in the past mentioned that humans are also kidnapped by aliens in the Bermuda Triangle.
Sure, but it is as rare as it is on all the rest of the Earth. For those abductions, mainly the Giza intelligences are predominant, together with time travelers and other elements of the universe. However, these incidents are truly very rare and count for less than 0.02% of all abduction cases on the Earth.
Contact Report 037.
With which life forms do you have contact?
With forms from your time level, thus from your present-day dimension, because these life forms are not yet capable of the change of dimensions in the manner we are.
Contact Report 038.
Now, however, I have one last question, namely concerning the Bermuda Triangle, and here especially because of the world in the other dimension. Can you describe this world to me?
There are several worlds and several dimensions, and if I had to describe them, it would go much too far. One of these worlds, however, is a parallel world to yours and has only minor differences. A second one, however, is very remarkable because 3 almost similar planets are in a line behind each other. So, if you were to go through the dimensional gate, you would again come to an Earth or world, but in another dimension, and thus in another time level. But the time lies very far back from your present time, namely in that time when the Earth, still inhabited by flying dinosaurs, was quite wild and fissured.
So this means that the dimensional gate fluctuates in its intensity, and thus opens gates to different dimensions or spheres.
Sure, you expressed that very precisely.
Well, but now again to this triple world. If I would now go through the dimensional gate, then according to your explanation I would again be on a world or Earth. But millions of years back in the flying dinosaur era, is that right?
Certainly.
Well, then I am actually again, or still on a world similar to Earth, even if many millions of years in the past. If I now come into this world of the past, then according to your statements I would still have to see the other worlds from that world, right?
Sure, and you would even see the other two planets very close because they are only a few 100,000 kilometers apart. So once you would see the horizon of that primeval world on which you would just stand, as a second world you would see the middle world, which is still wrapped in a radiant steam coat, and as a third world you would see it roughly like the Earth as it exists here in the present time.
But that doesn't make sense.
It also took us a very long time to solve this strange mystery. In all parallel universes, there are also dimensional radiations that create the gate in the Bermuda Triangle. However, 3,500 years ago, when Venus shook the Earth, the dimensional harmony was disturbed and two planets, the primordial planet and the gaseous planet, were dragged into the dimension of the completed planet, after which the dimensional gate returned to normal. Therefore, in that dimension, these three different planets exist in that solar system. So you could almost say that the same worlds there exist 3 times in 3 different stages of development, which, of course, is illogical. With my beam ship, I can penetrate into that or any other dimension, but I cannot return. We'll need Father's spaceship to do that.
Contact Report 039.
But how does it stand now, with the dimension gate in the Devil's Triangle? Can one see this?
With eyes alone, it is not recognizable, but it is possible to make the radiation visible. Sure, I can make the radiation visible by my ship. Only 2 paths of radiation are currently recognizable from this side of the Earth, however, while the third is behind the Earth and therefore cannot be seen from here. You can steer my ship calmly if you like. But please pay attention here. If you should lose control, then simply press these 3 contact points in the grid. By these, everything turns to the 0 position, and the automatic control mechanism regulates everything within a split second. Thus, no dangers can appear. But despite everything, please pay attention to the speed. It may well be because of our high level of development that we have a different nature in such concerns. With certainty, our somewhat finer dimension also exerts a certain influence on it. The number of these people, however, who could actually enter into connection with human beings of other dimensions, is only to be reckoned as 16 of these all over the world, but these do not use their capabilities. Only important to us are those who could enter into connection with other dimensioned human forms.
What am I to understand by the WE subconsciousness level?
It concerns subconsciousness connections to the WE form of the Earth humans, and, therewith, to same-dimensioned life forms in this world's area, who stand in no wise higher in their evolution than the connection-seeking Earth humans themselves. Thus, they cannot convey or obtain any translated or higher knowledge, collective subconsciousness.
Something is just a bit fishy to me with this journey, namely the time. I am now already about 2 hours away from home, and I should still stay away for another 2 days. At the same time, I simply do not understand how one would not notice my absence. This is something that just does not make any sense to me. These time shifts quite simply go beyond my spiritual horizon. These little time cramps really do not make me any wiser. I understand what really happens, but how everything is connected together, this is a 7-fold mystery to me.
Accept my consolation, because I do not understand any more than you. Even our best scientists know only very few secrets of these matters. They do indeed know the how, when, and where, etc., but they do not know the basic causes of the process. Therefore, do not think about it too much, for it would be pointless. I can, however, explain to you what happens in order for you to be able to have 2 days with us. It is the simplest possibility for us. You will be with us for 2 days, while on Earth only 2 hours will pass. These 2 hours, however, are only the length of time that you needed to come to the contact place, arrive here with me, and then go home again.
But these 2 hours are, nevertheless, already over, and are even exceeded by more than about 40 minutes.
Sure, I just wanted to explain that to you. Your way from your house to the contact place, our greeting, and the flight here lasted only 45 minutes. You will also need this time for the return. Besides this, what you do not know is that on the flight here from Earth, I leaped about 2 days into the past. You do indeed know how easy this is. Hence,
Girl, now I understand.
you do not understand, because we have not done a normal leap into the past. It is a time shift that is still unknown to you. You now live twice, namely once here and once down there on the Earth.
Now I really do not understand.
Understand yet, we do indeed live here at present, but we are at the same time 2 days in the past. For us it is now indeed Wednesday, but on Earth it is now only Monday.
I really do not understand. According to your statement, I would now have to be down there on Earth and would be going straight to bed, because on Monday, I did not go to bed until morning. So we are now having Monday there on the Earth, as you say. Nevertheless, I am here and thus am not climbing into bed. This is therefore not clear.
You understand everything very well. You just do not want to accept it because you find it too fantastic.
Well, you claim then that I am here in my normal present and at the same time 2 days in the past. I already lived these 2 past days on the Earth below, as seen from my present. But since I am now moved 2 days back, I should first start to live these 2 days down there, or rather live through them, while I will, in reality, first live through these 2 days with you yet. This is nevertheless crazy. Now, according to your statement, I would actually have to exist twice, namely down there on Earth, where I'm going straight to bed, and once here. Thus, I could now visit myself down there, eh?
Sure, if we would now return to the Earth, then you could, theoretically or practically, depending on the case, talk with yourself.
Aha, I could therefore go to my own front door and knock until the door would be opened for me. And who would open for me, eh? I for myself in my own person. Man, girl, I would just like to see my dumb face once, when I suddenly stand before me and even say hello to myself. At the same time, it just does not make sense to me that in the normal time, only 2 hours pass, while the past requires 2 days for it.
That is regulated by a time manipulation. But now look, there are the Bermudas.
The view from here is magnificent. Geez, do you want us to drown in the sea?
I just want to go down close so that I can demonstrate the transition to you, as it is also experienced by earthly pilots and crews of ships. Consider now that with this transition, it does not concern that which normally exists. This is the transition into the dimension of the threefold world. So this is a different dimension than that one, into which ships and airplanes penetrate.
What type of dimension, then, does it concern with the other one?
In that dimension, the world is already suspended in the distant future, but the inhabitants on the Earth of that time very rarely penetrate from that.
So be it, girl, but, human child, we are already in the middle of the thing, and at the same time, One cannot see anything at all that would indicate a radiation or something. Girl, this is really fantastic. Wait, yes. Girl, behind us, I see my own world. And there in front is something completely foreign, something wild and quaint.
We are now at the exact crossroads of the vortex. Thus you can see both dimensions. In front of us is the primeval world, as I described it to you.
It is no secret. We are searching here for an overdue beamship of a life form known to us from our dimension. It penetrated a few days ago and has no possibilities for its own return. You know very well that this is not the case, and that the majority of the so-called mediums truly have no contacts at all with such life forms or even other dimensioned life forms, and that some of them are just subject to a self-deception or are quite consciously and deceitfully led to believe such contacts. Our next goal shall be the moon of the third world.
The human beings of this dimension and time have, indeed, become much more peaceful than those on your world in your time. But they are still barbaric and quite aggressive, so they would force us to land, which would be very unpleasant for us. They do live here approximately 500 years in the future. Look over there. That is one of their beam ships. Sure, they also have about 500 years more development behind themselves than the Earth humans of your time, which I already said.
A few minutes later, we are already on the planet, only in another dimension and about 500 years in the future. When we fly out again into space, I notice by my watch that we were in this world for 7 hours. Far out in space, we come to Ptah's giant ship, go in, and then Ptah leads his ship back into my time and into my dimension.
Contact report 040.
Only for the contact with us or other extraterrestrial or differently dimensioned life forms, it would not have been necessary to train you and to let you find enormous knowledge, realizations and wisdom and the truth.
Contact report 043.
After your passing away, we have fulfilled our task here and will return to our dimension.
Contact report 044.
The people I have marked as negative are not contact persons. In any case, they never had contact with extraterrestrial intelligences that reached them from outside of the Earth, neither through free space nor through a dimensional gate, because these penetration possibilities are so hermetically controlled that it is completely impossible for even a tiny particle unit to be able to pass through without being registered by us or the other intelligences monitoring the Earth.
Contact report 048.
The great innovations are housed inside and offer many more possibilities than is the case in my current ship. With the new one, I am also able to penetrate dimensions in both directions.
Contact report 053.
The closest one I know is in Madagascar, which is a dimensional gate.
You mean the same effect as in the Bermuda Triangle and the Japanese Sea?
Certainly.
Contact report 054.
Our one technical communication possibility you would call radio, but with the possibility of no delay in transmission. Also, the transmission does not take place through the normal space, but in use of the hyperspace, through which we pass our signals, disassembled, with faster-than-light particles, which spread over the whole hyperspace in fractions of -seconds due to their million-fold speed of light, and thus form again at the same moment at the target.
What you are explaining to me is a mystery, because I do not know anything about these things. However, I have probably understood a few things. For example, the disassembling of the signals. Could it be a distortion taking place in some distortion device?
No. The disassembling is a universal expansion of the signals and impulses in relation to the speed, with just the signals and impulses charged faster than light particles, which you call tachyons.
Contact report 055.
Now another question. You explained to me at the beginning of our acquaintance that your beam ships are equipped with a light-emitting drive and further with a tachyon drive. Is that why you call the ships beam ships?
No, because the drives you mentioned do not correspond to direct beam drives. The beam drives were of a different kind, and we have not used them for about 400 years, although we have kept the name beam ships for ourselves. My ship, which I still had in my possession at our first encounter, was still half radiant, which is why you were able to see the radiations. However, these were only highly concentrated light beams. My last ship already had an anti-gravity propulsion based on the principle of repulsion. However, this drive was only suitable for planetary flight, while the tachyon drive was retained for free space. The present ship is equipped with an antimatter propulsion system for free space, which was developed more than 50,000 years ago.
Contact report 057.
My tasks are closely connected with my learned knowledge, which relates to spiritual education, coordination, technology, archaeology research through time travel into the past, earthly religion, politics and economics, earthly history of humankind, and various other things, for which I am taught and trained in every single value.
Contact report 060.
While great scientists were able to flee with their spaceships and returned to the former homeworlds of our 7 stars, being our Pleiades, which were settled by the earliest forefathers when they left their original homeworlds in another space-time configuration in the Vega Lyra region.
The next sun system seen from us belongs to the Centauri group. To my knowledge is the first Proxima Centauri, then Alpha Centauri and Beta Centauri, which by us, though, is being called something else, namely the Barnard star or similar, which is at a distance of a little bit more than 6 light-years away from us. Now, are you informed about whether any humans live in those sun systems who come to Earth?
Certainly. I myself know. There, in other space-time structures, several dear friends in all 3 systems, although only in the Barnard system, meaning Beta Centauri, can it be discovered from Earth that small planets are circling around the sun there.
Contact report 063.
But tell me, was his Svath's pear-shaped ship one of your usual ships? You had a completely different 300-year-old box.
His ship was a gift from Assyrian people.
You mean from people of Sirius?
Certainly, from one of the 2 inhabited planets of Sirius, but in a different space-time configuration.
Contact report 064.
I was only able to find out that at that time, 1962, there were actually 2 Cassiopean ships with several crew members on the Earth for about 4 months. Unfortunately, however, our research has now revealed that one of the ships was destroyed during the return flight to the home star in 1962 with the entire crew, whereby all records were also destroyed. The reasons of the destruction are shrouded in darkness and could not be clarified, because it took place in hyperspace, which was determined at that time by coordinate impulses. The second ship started from the Earth about 7 years ago, because the crew was expeditionarily busy until then. Unfortunately, this ship did not reach home either, because some influences threw the ship into a foreign dimension when it wanted to break hyperspace. This resulted in the fact that all control devices of the home base, which were coupling remotely with the devices of the ship, suddenly did not pick up any impulses anymore when the breakthrough should have taken place, which indicates with compelling clarity that the ship was thrown into a foreign dimension.
Contact report 069.
These visitors are very small people, only 110 centimeters tall. They inhabit a small planetary world in a galaxy that was previously unknown to us. They came to Earth by an involuntary time shift, by a faulty manipulation of their still insufficient space technology.
Oh, that is how it is. But where are these dwarves now? Can they even go back to their homeland? You said that they came here because of a time difference, just because of an unwanted one. That does mean that they have been thrown out of their own time, right?
Sure, but they will find their homeland again, because Father brings them back to their time and to their homeworld through a leap in time. But this still offers some difficulties, because we still have no information about their home galaxy, which is why we first have to work out the coordinates.
Contact Report 070.
The later original homeworlds were planets in the constellation known to you as Lyra and near Vega, in a different space-time structure, which is shifted from yours by a fraction of a second. So the time came when they built themselves flying ships, with which they could also leave their space-time structure and could rush through the free and wide space of the levels of the universe. Preparations took 4 long centuries in secret form to break out in one sudden blow into a far-reaching and open war of liberation, which spread and dragged on over many other dimensioned worlds of the Lyra and Vega systems. The commander-in-chief of the terrorizing forces was an Jesuit called Asael, who, after realizing the hopelessness of the struggle, escaped the vengeful and victorious peoples by a quick escape into the space-time structure of this level of the universe. They quickly left the home systems, only to wander through the again shifted space-time structures for many restless years, before one day they found a large star system which offered them the necessary possibilities for life, far away from their original home systems. Of the 3 worlds made habitable, various expedition ships were equipped, after which the Titan fugitives flew out into the vastness of space to reach and take possession of their predetermined destination after 17 years. These were stars and planets in their dimension beyond those stars known to you as Hesperides, which have their own worlds circling around them and were only weakly inhabited by human life forms, which were subjugated by the conquerors. During 2 centuries, a new culture was created on these differently dimensioned Hesperide worlds and inhabited by emigrants from the Asael system. Under the supreme command of the new leader, Pleiadian, further expeditions were prepared to expedite a very distant and lonely solar system, located in this, your space-time plane, which according to all calculations must have come into possession of a section of a planet from the original earliest home systems, after the destroyer had destroyed the earliest original homeworlds many millions of years ago. According to the coordinates of old records, the refugees entered this space-time structure and the SOL system, and thus once again arrived on Earth, where the Titans once again settled. Many hundreds of thousands fled with large and small ships into free space, set down and settled in another space-time structure in Beta Centaurus, which, you know, in your space-time structure as the Barnard star. Through an accomplice, the scientists obtained possession of spaceships and fled into the space-time shifted regions of Beta Centauri. The Pleiades stars of your space-time plane are much younger than the Earth, but not so with our stars and planets, which were named only by numerical values until the time when the High Council took control.
Contact Report 076.
2 days ago, it was exactly 3 months since I last saw Simjase. Since then, I have only had a brief telepathic contact with her, which also seemed to come from another dimension. Manara, you see that I am here with Quetzal's ship, which earlier was piloted by Simjase. So you also know that time jumps can be made here with this device, which is why I think that we can discuss the necessary things in peace before I make a time shift and bring you back to the place where you left your wife in such a hurry just a few minutes after the time to rush to me. On the other hand, she Simjase is currently indispensable and held in another time plane, where she is on the go for your concerns.
Contact report 078 Alena. I come from the planet Saturn, which is about 1/3 smaller than your home planet. Seen from Earth. Saturn is situated in the constellation of Lyra, 157.3 million kilometers away from the Sun MEL. However, the planets are not recognizable from the Earth with its still very underdeveloped technology, because they are in another spacetime level. Contact report 079.
What the life-abandoned human body is only imperfectly able to unravel, the part of creation in you is able to reveal with all clarity and truth, namely the certainty of your absolute duration in the all-great timeliness. You should look unswervingly to the tasks of your life on the earth, in the knowledge that on this side, the realms of coarse matter rule, and in the other world, the realms of fine matter rule. But that the divided realms of this side and the other world, are a single realm, present in the same place, but dimensioned differently, and therefore not in the same period.
Contact report 081.
Certain events of the recent past can even be traced back to this, because through the unreasonableness of a certain member, Margaret Flammer, who, despite repeated warnings, continues to indulge herself with new spiritualistic sessions, negative swinging waves were able to spread from the medium in question, registered by a brain analyzer of the Giza intelligences that found a weak spot and consequently created that artificial insect, with the help of a malignant refugee group from a space-time displaced area of the Pegasus constellation, guilty of bacterial contamination in the center.
Due to this migration of the entire Sol system, the axis point of the radiation of those large celestial bodies, which caused the dimensional gates in the Bermuda Triangle, in Madagascar, and in the Japanese Devil's Sea, has slowly shifted more and more. Since then, the Earth is out of the range of the radiation, and no dimension barrier or dimension gate still exists at any other place on the planet.
Contact report 093.
Everyone is with us at the station, including her Ta Asina's ship, whose intergalactic propulsion was destroyed by an explosion. Note, see contact reports 90, 91, and 93 for information on Billy's first encounter with Asina.
Contact report 096 Asados. Obviously, however, no one expected that you would undertake a spiritual consciousness journey through space and time into our dimension, in the deepest concern, in order to give you clarity. Contact report 097.
Simjase once made a rather strange remark to me. This led me to speculate, which is why I assume that you live on your Pleiades in a differently dimensioned form. By this I mean that you are probably up there in our universe and in our time, as Simjase once explained to me, but that you are dimensionally shifted, namely in a parallel system of our Pleiades.
But this does not change anything, because we are just as compact and present in this dimension of ours as we are in that of our Pleiades systems, because we are descended from this dimension and also from your dimension. Why we live in a parallel dimension on Era and in our Pleiades systems, in general, is due to the fact that the Pleiades systems are not habitable for us in this dimension, your dimension, and could not be made habitable by our ancestors either, because the system for habitation is still much too young for us in this dimension.
Your explanation is plausible, But what is the nature of the Pleiades system in the other dimension? Is it as solid as our Earth?
It is a parallel dimension, that is what I said. Therefore, matter is also of the same strength as the Earth's matter. The dimensions are simply different in their structure, but not in time and space.
Contact Report 104.
But tell me, Quetzal, can you also penetrate other dimensions with this old box? It makes me wonder whether you can also travel to the past and the future with Manara's ship.
It is possible, but where do you want to go?
To Frisco, my son, to San Francisco, but to the future. Namely, to the time when the city was destroyed by the great earthquake.
It takes several hours if I want to go there with you. This old ship, I do not have another one available at the moment, needs a longer preparation time, after which you will only be back in normal time at dawn.
It does not matter because you can bring me back at about the same time as you got me out of bed.
That would be possible.
Contact Report 107 Pleiadian. You are surely still able to remember that in autumn of last year, a flying object unknown to us appeared, which responded to none of our calls. To this day, we still have not been able to get a hold of it either, even though it still moves in the earthly space. So far, if we tried to get a hold of this object, it regularly escaped by retreating into a dimension unknown to us. Contact Report 114.
Thus, if you want to get to know more of this, then you must strive yourself, in which case you should very wisely use the Sohar Center, see the last entry here, a meditation area at the Simjase Silver Star Center.
I wanted to anyway for a long time, because I would like to try a leap into the past.
You know how very dangerous that can be?
If he has planned something, then he does not let himself be deterred even by the greatest dangers, which you should know, nevertheless. Perhaps it will then simply be the case that we have to go searching for him somewhere between thousands of years if he miscalculates or is hurled incorrectly by some circumstances.
Well roared, my child.
Then at least enlighten us before you're doing into what time and area you want to leap back.
Okay, I promise.
Contact Report 119.
Ah, by that, you mean the UFOs that showed up recently in Italy and Australia and in various other countries?
Sure. These flying devices are obviously constructions of a very well-developed technology, which is not yet so advanced, however, that they could move into our refined areas of communication.
By that, you probably mean at the same time your somewhat different physical structure, right? By that, I mean even the dimensional difference, through which you, in a moderate measure, exhibit different and much finer vibrations compared to us earthworms.
Sure.
Then just not. But is it right? Now, if I have calculated that the creation's expansion rate for the initial period was 44,069,497.5 kilometers per second, with a steadily constant half-life rate of almost exactly 6,147,755,102 years, from which the results arise that the expansion rate of the creation at its universal beginning was 147 times the speed of today's speed of light constant. But this speed decreased with a half-life of 6,347,755, 102,040 years, and continues to decrease. So the starting point of today's light constant lay at a speed of 344,292.9 kilometers per second. But through the already elapsed portion of half-time, it has already dropped by 44,500.4 kilometers per second. Whereby the present and current light constant of 299,792.5 kilometers per second arises, according to which an original light year from the starting point of the current light constant of around 1.390 x 10^15 kilometers has amounted. This means, according to my calculations, that the constant of 1 second of the initial period of the expansion rate must have been 147 times faster than the constant of 1 second today, because at that time, around 46 trillion years ago, the speed of light was even 44,497.5 kilometers per second. From this, it also arose in my calculations that 1 second has, in each case, exactly that number of chronons that the light constant of 1/septillionth of a millimeter contains in itself, because a chronon has a length of 105 septillionths of 140 millimeters, and because exactly that number of chronons is able to pass a certain point from the source to the fade-out of a beam of light, as the speed of light contains in itself. So in the present case, around 20.394 x 10^30 chronons per second. This was even easier to calculate since I knew that space and time are dependent on each other. Therefore, both time holds space in itself as also space holds time. From these results, however, my acceptance has arisen that through the transformation and lowering of the speed of light by the half-life, also space and the chronons change themselves, according to which, then, normal space would have to change itself to hyperspace, and the chronons would have to change themselves to tachyons, which continue to exist in hyperspace as the smallest units of time at their own old speed, according to which the oldest tachyons would, therefore, have to have a speed of 44,069,497.5 kilometers per second in their own hyperspace. It also became clear to me that each dwindling away of a half-life creates its own hyperspace. Thus, already 7 different hyperspaces, 7 half-lives, 7x, 6,347, 755, 102, 40, 44.434 x 10-12 years would have to exist in our universe. Furthermore, it also became clear to me that time travels into the past or future can only be associated with this fact, because somehow the traveling object must be manipulated in such a way that the flow of chronons is steered. So, for example, if tachyons with a speed of light higher than ours and present in hyperspace or normal space would be stored around a traveling object, then it would be hurled into the past, while a flow of chronons below our current speed of light must have a journey into the future as a consequence. This has become clear to me, but the how, that has remained a riddle to me. It is now also clear to me that the chronons can only stay and move in normal space, while the tachyons only move in hyperspace. This then, along with many other things that have become perceptible to me, about which I would still like to say nothing today, however, because I'm not yet sure of the results. Ah yes, what could still be said? According to my calculations, after the end of the next half-life, our light constant would have to be 172,146.45 kilometers per second. I would still have a few more questions. Is it right that the absolute hyperlight constant lies at a value of $10,700, as Svath once explained this to me?
That is of correctness. At the same time, it concerns the constant in the space of the absolutum of creation, so the highest speed of creation, and the creation's expansion rate at the origin.
So it is, therefore, also true that the expansion of the universe takes place all-dimensionally and spirally, where the shape, then, resembles a somewhat round egg?
Also that is of correctness.
Contact Report 121.
Then I have a somewhat complicated question. Through various calculations, I have, another time, encountered the fact that something cannot be right with the dimensions of our present, from this to the Centaurus groups, as well as to Lyra and Vega, and even to the Pleiades. According to my calculations, these suns and planets addressed, of which there was already often talk between Simjase, Quetzal and me, as well as between Ptah and me, would really have to be in other dimensions, as it was said to me repeatedly. This would, therefore, actually mean that their Lyra and Vega human beings, and still some others, are just as non-existent in our present dimension, as also the Pleiadians and the Centaurus human beings. And if my calculations are right, then you all would have to live just a fraction of a second in the future to our space-time configuration, which, for us, however, results in a difference of several thousand years with regard to technological development. But how this is connected, that is a riddle to me, and it could even be very difficult to understand. But Ptah once spoke of the fact that on that or on a planet of the Centaurus groups, a people lives in overpopulation, which comprises about 120 billion. So these, then, would have to live in the future, as seen by us. On the other hand, I also calculated that at that time, around 22 million years ago, when the events took place in the Lyra and Vega area, which eventually led to the visits to our Earth. At that time, through some skillful manipulation, the Lyra and Vega refugees fell into the past and so penetrated into our space-time level. With certainty, this was no so-called chance, but rather a full calculation. This arose from my contemplation of the fact that the technology of your ancestors was already so widely developed at that time that these would have tracked and found the refugees with certainty. But since that was not the case, the refugees must have retreated into areas that fell outside of the control of the pursuers. But concerning this, there are only two possibilities, namely the past or the future. But as I know the things now, the refugees were not able to venture into the future, so only the past remained open to them, to where they then actually also retreated. And because the past comprises millions of years and even billions of years in a life potential form, the pursuit was given up. But this, in turn, means that the technology of your ancestors was not yet developed so far that they would have been able to carry out detections in the areas of the past or the future. But I now know from Ptah's Great Spacer that this is possible for you today, and that you know how to locate any structural vibration in any area of the past or future within seconds on the basis of computer analyses. Manara, how did you reach these results? Through various calculations, when I grappled with the expansion rate and thus also with hyperspace, normal space, and with time, as well as with the pertinent information and remarks from Simjase, Ptah, Quetzal, and Asket. Minada, I now suppose that you will even understand the issues surrounding space shifts and time shifts. When I explain this to you in detail, about which you would have to preserve silence, however, under all circumstances.
Contact Report 123.
The objects observed and photographed by you come from the Andromeda areas, and these are fine material flying objects, similar to the bioorganic flying objects that you know. In this case, however, it is such that these flying objects are fine material and not bioorganic, and that these, depending on preference and need, are generated by powers of consciousness from a very highly developed human dwarf race whose size amounts to approximately 70 centimeters, whereby I speak of body height.
This race, Nabulanians,
which is even unknown to us, is fine-dimensioned and stands in the advice of the High Council, which has sent it here to clarify our interests with you in detail, because it was found that we would not assert ourselves strictly enough.
Contact Report 127.
If your time is short, then I can put you back by a time manipulation, so that you are back in your workroom about 10 minutes after you left it.
Contact Report 133.
From now on, we will often, through my daughter, remove you from the Earth for longer periods of time for you to become familiarized with yourself again, and then drop you back into your time using time shifts.
Contact Report 134.
As you understand absolutely correctly, the basic building blocks of original material consisting of 280 elements, which were the basis for all later matter and today's universe, were included in the energy fetchon, which was the original core of all that exists in today's universe and all its dimensions.
Contact Report 137.
Unfortunately, I currently cannot reach Quetzal either personally or by our communication device because he is staying in another time dimension. As soon as he returns to our time dimension, however, then he will call me, and then I can convey your question to him and can then receive his answer.
Contact Report 139.
Also, with this device, it is possible for me to dive directly into the past or future, but also to penetrate into other dimensions. The flight from my home world to Earth is reduced with this new aircraft to 0 time, which I will also explain to you at a later time.
Contact Report 141.
With ethically and very highly distinct lifestyles, the inhabitants of Haster are very peaceful and loving, and besides this, they live in the same time level as the Sowell system, thus in the present level, as this would be said or called by you.